I decided to do one more recording for you for chapter 8 because chapter 9 is so exciting that I know that you're really going to want to tune in tomorrow, or it'll probably be more like Saturday for chapter 9. I have to go pick up my girls at school tomorrow because they have to leave college, just so that you know. But we're going to do chapter 8 today. And then I'll do chapter 9 and 10 and 11 over the weekend for those of you that are really interested in finding out what happens to Sandra. And I'll also bring another guest from my house on Saturday when I record. So that's something for you to look forward to. So here we go, chapter 8.
The first night in the field, we all slept outside on the ground. A bunch of displaced, frazzled families, uncertain of what was to come. There were hundreds of us. We had no tents or mattresses and no food. My dad went foraging and returned with a handful of snacks he bought from kids selling them by the side of the road. Peanuts and mandazi, little round cakes. The field stretched along a highway that ran from Burundi to Congo, and cars whizzed by us as we lay in the dirt. The land smelled of fertilizer and livestock from a nearby farm. The ground was hard and damp, and mosquitoes feasted on us. The evening air was cooler than we were accustomed to, and the officials from the UNHCR handed out itchy dark gray blankets. Those blankets were so scratchy, I wondered if the person who designed them thought, "How can I make the world's worst blanket?" No one slept much that night. The next morning, the UNHCR officials started building tents. They put some strong logs in the ground and stretched green tarps across the top. Our new homes. The tents were separated into rooms, with the sheets of tarp serving as walls. But there was no privacy. There were women's tents and men's tents. We had nothing, no furniture, no mosquito nets, just thin mattresses placed flat on the ground. It took several days for officials to deliver food. In the meantime, Dad bought snacks from the kids by the roadside. My parents said the situation was temporary, and I think they really believed that. We had been displaced before. I thought we would just have to endure this incredibly uncomfortable camp for a little while. Life in a refugee camp is bizarre. There's no school, nothing to do, no toys for kids, no dolls, no distractions. People sit there all day long. For the first week, I thought it was kind of exciting because some of my friends were there. Their families had fled the city like us, grabbing rides however they could. Since my friends were now living within a few feet of me, we could hang out all day and eat dinner with my parents at night. Kind of like an endless slumber party. My friends called my parents Mama Sandra and Papa Sandra. We didn't use terms like Mr. and Mrs. In my culture, that would be considered impersonal and disrespectful. I loved eating meals with my friends every night. My best friends were there. 2 girls around my age named Justine and Ziraje, and a boy named Enje. We would hang out together during the day, looking for things to do, thinking up games to entertain ourselves. We played one game with a ball made up of wadded up plastic bags and rubber bands. One of us would stand in the middle of 2 others, and we would try to hit the person in the middle with the ball, sort of like dodgeball. Sometimes, young men from Burundi would come to the camp with bikes to see if anyone wanted to be taken anywhere, and my brother Alex managed to befriend some of them. This was a huge bonus, because they would let us play with their bikes. Alex taught me tricks on the bike, like how to let go of the handlebars while I rode. Weeks went by. I missed school terribly, but I continued to think that we would be going home. My siblings and I spent much of our time in line for water, standing with empty jugs to fill from a giant plastic tank in a blue tent. The water tank was huge, the size of a spacious living room. Trucks would come regularly and pump water into the tank. The line for water was always crowded, and sometimes the water would run out after we waited in line all day. We went there almost every day. I was so little that I would often get pushed to the back of the line. I was never successful in retrieving water from that tank. My older siblings were much better at it. For food, each family had a card to show the authorities to get their rations. Every few weeks, UN workers would deliver rations of rice, beans, vegetable oil, sugar, salt, and a flour mixture called sosoma, made of soybeans, sorghum, and corn. The amount of food you got depended on the number of people in your family. There was no variation in our meals. No greens, no meat, no fish. The women cooked with clay stoves, fueled by coal, and the camp always smelled of fire and smoke. People were provided with pots for cooking, but some women had brought their own. Many of my family's things had been stolen on the drive to the camp, but we still had our photo albums, which my mom had grabbed on the way out of the house. I would often flip through them with my friends, since we had so little to do. On the days the food was delivered, I got depressed. It was as if we had been reduced to beggars. Mom and Dad waited in line with their card for their designated food supply, and it was disheartening to see my parents so powerless. All of us kids in the camp could see that our parents were no longer in control. How could parents assure their kids that everything would be fine when we could see how vulnerable they were? They couldn't hide it. We appreciated the food, but it was a demeaning and demoralizing experience. The camp had a handful of outhouses, separated for women and men. The toilet consisted of a hole in the ground, unsanitary and smelly. To bathe, we put water in a bucket and splashed ourselves with it, using soap we bought from local vendors via the kids on bikes. It was a far cry from our comfy house back in Uvira with indoor plumbing. Every day I dreamed of going home. I couldn't fully comprehend why we had been displaced, why people would resent us so much that they would drive us from our homes into this barren, desolate place. We tried our best to stay positive. At 6 o'clock in the morning every day, people would gather outside in the middle of the camp for prayers with the pastor. Sometimes I would go with Deborah and my mom. Other times I would sleep in, waking to people singing and clapping, happy sounds. Every Sunday, people gathered for church in the courtyard. On the cool, crisp mornings, I would nestle with Mom, resting my head on her shoulder. At one point, some of us kids were taken to the Congolese embassy in the capital of Burundi to take final exams. Congo had national finals for 6th and 12th grades. I was in 6th grade, and I went. We were offered food at the embassy, but I was too nervous to eat. The kids who did eat, including Princess, who was in 12th grade, got very sick, throwing up from food poisoning. The Congolese workers in the embassy had tampered with the food. Even the school kids were targets. I never got the results of my exam. We returned to the refugee camp and continued to sit there in the heat with nothing to do day after day. And then came that fateful night, when the sound of gunfire approached while Deborah and I lay down to sleep. I never imagined it would be the last night I would see my little sister alive.
So that's all for today. Buster wanted to come and say goodbye. Say goodbye, Buster. Bye. Hope everyone's well. And I miss you a lot, and I hope you're doing great. And we'll check in tomorrow. Bye.